After fully recovering thanks to the yin-yang furnace, Shi Hao was brought by Ji Yuyi to a secret chamber. There, Ji Yuyi respectfully kowtowed before the ancient ancestor of the Jiyu clan. Showing the utmost reverence toward this legendary existence, Shi Hao, however, was deeply surprised by what he saw. The stone door was crude and ordinary, without any divine force or Tao laws. Behind it was a simple stone room containing only a stone bed, where an elderly man was seated. This elder was the great ancestor of the Jiyu clan, a once peerless existence who had been able to fight Anlin and stand on the verge of becoming an immortal king. In the past, he had possessed golden hair, powerful vitality, and unmatched heroic bearing, but the passage of time had left deep marks on him. His hair had turned partly white, his skin had lost its former radiance, and his blood energy and vitality had greatly declined. Most astonishingly, Shi Hao could not sense the slightest magical fluctuation from him. The once world-shaking expert now appeared no different from an ordinary old man who had reached the end of his life. Jiyu clan's ancestor calmly examined Shi Hao without displaying any killing intent or soul pressure. Then, he raised his hand and pointed directly between Shi Hao's brows, precisely where his primordial spirit was located. Shi Hao immediately became tense, but he did not retreat. The moment the finger touched the area between his brows, intense heat surged through him. His frontal bone shone brilliantly, and thunderous sounds erupted. The symbol associated with the Stone clan's bloodline appeared, an imprint that the cultivators of Imperial Pass had long regarded as the shameful mark of sinners' blood. Yet, upon seeing this symbol, the Jiyu clan ancestor finally displayed an emotional reaction. His eyes became extraordinarily bright, seeming to see through Shi Hao's heart. Lightning tore through the void, and the long river of time faintly appeared. He then spoke for the first time, confirming that Shi Hao was indeed a descendant of the Stone clan. For a brief moment, the elder's expression became extremely complicated. His eyes first dimmed, then suddenly became brilliant enough to seem capable of burning the heavens, before finally filling with profound sadness. Although this transformation lasted only an instant, the power released from his emotions shook the entire ancient land. Inside the stone room, the mysterious force flattened everything, while outside, primal chaos, lightning and thunder erupted across the heavens. A mortal mist covered the sky. Vast stretches of land collapsed. The heavens were torn apart. Stars fell from the sky, and a rain of blood descended as if the universe itself were mourning. Countless creatures trembled under the terrifying might before the phenomenon quickly disappeared, leaving the world calm once more. Shi Hao remained extremely tense, his frontal bone still shining and his body taut like a drawn bow. Although he knew that he could not possibly defeat such a legendary existence, he was prepared to resist with everything he possessed rather than submit. He even believed that the ancestor might be preparing to seize his body, which seemed to be the only explanation for the strange situation. Ji Yuyi, meanwhile, secretly hoped that his great ancestor would use Shi Hao, who had successfully cultivated the body as the seed path, as a means of escaping his current predicament or reviving himself. However, the ancestor only waved his hand. His eyes contained loneliness, sword-like radiance, and reflections of countless figures from the immortal ancient era, along with scenes of a world-shaking battle and seas of blood reaching the heavens. When Ji Yuyi asked whether the ancestor intended to let them leave, the elder calmly rejected the idea of taking Shi Hao's Tao seed. He stated that if he had fallen so far that he needed to plunder another person's great Tao seed, then he would never have been able to reach his current realm, and the Jiyu clan would have long since lost its place in the world. Ji Yuyi was shaken and still asked whether Shi Hao could not help the ancestor in any way. But the ancestor gave no further explanation. Instead, a formless power pushed both Shi Hao and Ji Yuyi out of the stone room, after which the stone door silently closed. After leaving the underground palace and Stone Valley, Ji Yuyi and Shi Hao were immediately surrounded by numerous supreme beings. Some came from emperor clans, while others came from different forces. They regarded Ji Yuyi with suspicion and carefully examined Shi Hao, because rumors had long circulated that an ancient existence was hidden beneath Stone Valley. This ancestor had once nearly reached the immortal king realm but had suffered a devastating attack from the Stone clan's ancestor, causing his foundation to be ruined. Since ancestor Ji Yu had also been involved in the development of the body as the seed path, And Shi Hao had now successfully walked that path while the Stone Clan's ancestor had destroyed the Jiyu clan's path. The supreme beings suspected that Shi Hao's body might have been seized or that the seed within him had been taken. Jiyu Yi denied their suspicions, saying that without a heart capable of overlooking the past and present, no one could become an immortal king. He further reflected that even if the blades of the heavens wrapped around a person's body and formed a cocoon, one still needed the will to devour all of time in order to achieve the Tao. Nevertheless, the supreme beings remained doubtful because they had all sensed the terrifying collapse of heaven and earth caused by Ancestor Gu's brief emotional outburst. One of them therefore used the truth illumination mirror to shine divine light over Shi Hao and carefully examine him. But no abnormalities were discovered. The supreme beings finally decided to leave, reasoning that if Ancestor Jiyu had truly taken action, he would not have allowed Shi Hao to leave so easily. Just as they were leaving, a gigantic world tree in the distance suddenly shook. Its branches supported stellar rivers and countless stars. While its vast canopy protected the entire ancient realm, the world tree had been born in this world, and after the great battle of the past, its existence had helped repair the originally damaged realm walls, allowing the ancient realm to remain intact. Now, the tree suddenly radiated brilliant light and transmitted a decree directly from outer space. The supreme beings were immediately shocked when they recognized it as an undying's decree. Realizing that the situation must have become extremely urgent, the decree of the undying beings descended from outside space through the power of the world tree. The protector tree of this world. The world tree possessed boundless power, and every movement of its leaves could cause stars to shift and the sun and moon to tremble. Normally, even supreme beings rarely dared to contact it unless something extremely important had happened. The decree itself radiated endless brilliance and was covered in powerful characters whose strokes seemed to be forged from metal and silver. Although the undying beings did not personally descend, strands of their essence energy had entered the decree, making its authority extremely terrifying. Even the supreme beings of the emperor clans received it with solemn and respectful expressions. Demonstrating the strict hierarchy of this world, undying existences were exceedingly rare, and even the most powerful emperor clans might possess only one or two. Becoming an undying existence was incredibly difficult, and the emergence of even one such being could immediately elevate a clan to the status of a king clan. Even after that undying being died, the clan could retain its king clan status for a long period unless it completely declined and lost all hope of rising again. When everyone read the decree, they were shocked to discover that it had been written and signed by numerous undying beings and had been urgently transmitted through the world tree. Its ruling was clear. Huang, Shi Hao, was pardoned, no one was allowed to harm him, and anyone who secretly attacked him would be suppressed. This was a complete change from the vague attitude of the previous days, when various forces had been secretly moving against him. The reason for this sudden change soon became clear. The undying kings had not yet returned from burial land, but an old servant had appeared and hinted that Huang could not be harmed and instead had to be preserved intact. This old servant was the old wolf spirit guarding Anlin's cave, a vicious beast whose status was extraordinarily high despite being only a servant. Anlin's secluded residence was normally inaccessible even to his descendants, and only this old wolf guarded the ancient cave and waited for Anlin's orders. The old wolf revealed that Anlin had once said that the youngster who had seized the rotten wooden chest was quite interesting and should be carefully examined if he were captured. Those words had originally been spoken after the defeat at Heavenly Beast Mountain, when Shi Hao had taken the wooden chest. Now that Imperial Pass had truly handed Huang over, some undying beings went to seek guidance, causing the old wolf to emerge from the mountain and repeat Anlin's previous words. This created a tremendous commotion. Fearing that something unexpected might happen to Shi Hao, the undying beings immediately issued a strict decree and transmitted it throughout the world. The decree stated that Huang could not be killed, and anyone who violated this order could bring destruction upon their entire clan. Shi Hao was therefore no longer sent to Blackwater Prison, where he could potentially be tortured, nor was he sent back to War God Academy, since no one could act against him there and his presence would place the other disciples in danger. He had already caused a major disturbance there, resulting in the deaths of more than 100 young experts, causing many to regard him as an ominous bringer of disaster. Instead, Shi Hao obtained freedom and was allowed to travel throughout the ancient world. However, At least 6 fragments of the law decree flew out and were engraved onto his body. These were not spiritual imprints but fragments of the law decree itself. And they could not be removed. As a result, powerful figures could sense his location no matter where he went. When a supreme being asked what he planned to do next, Shi Hao calmly replied that the ancient world was vast and filled with secret lands, and that he wished to visit its beautiful mountains and rivers, as well as the ancient king cities and historical sites. He then set off alone. The news of his freedom caused a great uproar. Many creatures who hated him were filled with unwillingness, especially the powerful clans whose geniuses or older self-release realm experts had been killed by him. Nevertheless, they could not act because the decree clearly forbade anyone from harming Huang, and attacking him could implicate and even destroy their entire clan. Shi Hao traveled for 8 or 9 days, appearing completely relaxed as he visited various ancient lands. He seemed to genuinely treat himself as a tourist. Many hostile creatures secretly followed him, and eventually some no longer bothered to conceal their presence. Even half-supreme beings followed him closely, but none dared attack. Shi Hao ignored them completely, showing no concern for their hostility or killing intent. Eventually, many of them could only sigh helplessly and leave, while curious observers continued following him to discover what he intended to do. Shi Hao then traveled on a small boat along the Great Yin River, a vast black river that stretched across hundreds of thousands of li. When the terrain was flat, the river flowed silently and calmly, creating an oppressive atmosphere. When it passed through steep mountains, however, it roared like a thunderous dragon. The most terrifying feature was that everything near its banks, rocks, earth, and vegetation, was frozen into black ice. The river was filled with powerful yin energy, allowing it to freeze both shores. Despite the intense cold, Shi Hao remained completely unaffected and even began fishing from the boat. He soon caught a black vicious beast with a flood dragon head and a fish-like body. When it opened its bloody mouth to bite him, Shi Hao killed it, opened its chest and stomach, and used Dao flames to roast it. The creatures watching him were stunned that Huang, whose life was supposedly in danger, could remain so carefree and even leisurely enjoy a meal. As Shi Hao was about to leave the Great Yin River, a tremendous disturbance suddenly erupted. Black waves surged into the sky, and huge sprays of water shot toward the heavens. A Kun Peng had appeared and was attacking in the area, transforming into an enormous black fish that swam through the Great Yin River. Afterward, Shi Hao left the river and entered the valleys of Setting Sun Valley, a region where an undying existence had supposedly been buried. That expert had once failed in an attack against an undying king and eventually died there. He possessed part of the Golden Crow bloodline, and after his death, flames had burned through the heavens. The resulting fire Dao power had transformed hundreds of thousands of li into a terrifying dead zone where not even a blade of grass could grow. Shi Hao stood in Setting Sun Valley for a long time, carefully sensing the remaining Dao energy. He eventually became completely motionless, almost like a statue. 2 days later, dazzling brilliance suddenly erupted from his body. He began waving his arms, forming mysterious imprints and continuously attacking the surrounding space. The observers were shocked and realized that Shi Hao was comprehending the Dao. Even though he was surrounded by danger, had been targeted by powerful undying beings, and still faced an uncertain future, he had not abandoned cultivation. Instead, he was using his journey through the ancient world to search for his own Dao and continue advancing. After leaving Setting Sun Valley, Shi Hao traveled west and entered an ancient land filled with rich undying energy. The region was always silent, and no one normally dared to enter it. The creatures following him soon recognized the place and were shocked to realize that it was the secluded residence of Scarlet King. Scarlet King was an extraordinarily terrifying existence whose reputation was immense. He had once killed immortal kings with his weapon, and his vicious might was unmatched. However, something had happened to him during the immortal ancient war, after which he never appeared again. Some believed he was recuperating from serious injuries, while others suspected that he might already have died. Shi Hao had now arrived at this terrifying forbidden land, causing everyone to stop and stare at one another in shock, wondering whether Huang intended to break into Scarlet King's secluded residence. Shi Hao arrived at Scarlet King's final land of seclusion, a place no one dared approach because of Scarlet King's terrifying reputation. A gray-clothed elder warned him not to act recklessly, fearing that Shi Hao might enter despite the danger. Scarlet King had not appeared for countless years. but his vicious reputation remained deeply remembered, even by foreign creatures. The ancient land was filled with dense undying aura and a powerful will. Unable to enter, Shi Hao stood outside and comprehended the mysterious energy, later forming hand seals as if experiencing a profound technique. After circling the entire area, he decided not to investigate whether Scarlet King was alive and left. He then traveled west to a swamp, where he sensed a deep sorrow resonating with him. He learned that the swamp had been formed from the flesh and blood of powerful servants who had rebelled and been slaughtered there. Shi Hao understood that these servants were likely experts from the Nine Heavens who had been subdued after its defeat. Similar to the old servants from the Nine Heavens that the foreign younger generation had once mentioned. Shi Hao remained silent before leaving. He later reached a magnificent mountain covered with cliffs engraved with powerful Great Tao symbols and discovered the Golden List, where those who had created heavenly arts or researched ancestral techniques could leave their names to commemorate their achievements. Although the sealed area prevented him from entering, the powerful Tao auras left behind by the names still allowed him to gain insights from a distance. He stayed for several days before leaving. Over the following month, Shi Hao visited many places, including ancient lands of king clans and the outer regions of emperor clan residences. He eventually encountered a primitive and impoverished village whose inhabitants came from the Nine Heavens. When Shi Hao asked whether they had come from Imperial Pass, they surrounded him and tried to rob him, even revealing genuine killing intent. The gray-clothed elder appeared and stopped them. The villagers then respectfully asked whether the elder, who belonged to a king clan, needed battle servants. Leaving Shi Hao stunned, Shi Hao realized that the descendants of the Nine Heavens were not all as unyielding as he had imagined. After countless years of oppression and changing circumstances, many had lost their sense of belonging to their homeland, while even once proud clans could be tortured until they lost their pride. Shi Hao did not blame the villagers but sympathized with them, understanding that time had gradually erased their glory, self-respect, and former unyielding spirit. He later saw several more declining villages whose inhabitants were willing to become servants of king clans. The gray-clothed elder explained that such people could survive longer, while those who remained aggressive and unyielding, such as the fighters of War God Academy, were constantly exposed to bloody battles and death. 2 days later, Shi Hao received an invitation to a special tea ceremony, shocking even the hostile followers who had been tracking him. The ceremony was actually a Tao comprehension tea party, held when the incredibly precious Tao comprehension tea tree produced leaves. This rare immortal medicine could help cultivators comprehend the Tao, and whenever its leaves matured, countless heaven-defying geniuses gathered beneath it to drink tea, discuss the Tao, and exchange insights. Although millions might attend, only a few could taste the tea because the tree produced very few leaves, with only around 3,000 at its most prosperous. In the past, some cultivators had drunk repeated cups of the tea and comprehended the great Tao, breaking through the Supreme Being realm to become undying existences, while others had used it to rise from the self-severing realm. Intrigued, Shi Hao decided to attend. He arrived at Tao Comprehension Mountain, a famous holy land surrounded by immortal mist. At its foot, he saw a 4 or 5-year-old girl protecting her grandmother from a vicious youngster. The youngster mocked them as criminal servants and ridiculed the descendants of the Nine Heavens for remaining bold and unyielding despite their homeland nearly being destroyed. As he raised his foot to attack them, Shi Hao's anger surged. At the same time, he felt grateful to see that, unlike the villagers who had willingly accepted servitude, some descendants of the Nine Heavens still retained their pride and unyielding spirit. Shi Hao encountered a young man who was about to viciously trample an old woman and her little granddaughter. The girl was only 4 or 5 years old, although she had originally been quite pretty. Her small face was now filled with fear, her large eyes overflowing with tears. She threw herself over her grandmother, using her weak body to shield the old woman and desperately shouting for the young man not to hurt her. The old woman, already elderly and covered in the marks of a life of hardship, also tried to turn around and protect the girl despite the blood at the corner of her mouth. Just as the young man's foot was about to land on both of them, Shi Hao suddenly kicked him from behind, sending him flying and leaving him in intense pain, especially in his back. The young man was enraged and demanded to know who had attacked him. When he saw that Shi Hao was a human and a descendant of the Nine Heavens, he became even more arrogant, asking whose family's servant Shi Hao was and believing that descendants of the Nine Heavens were generally servants of various clans. Shi Hao questioned his vicious treatment of a child. But the young man arrogantly replied that the grandmother and granddaughter were his family's servants and that he could kill or punish them however he wished. He then attacked Shi Hao in anger. But Shi Hao had deliberately not killed him with the first kick. When the young man continued to provoke him, Shi Hao walked over and stomped him down again. Although the young man had reacted quickly and used ancestral methods to defend himself, Shi Hao still crushed him with overwhelming strength, cracking several bones in his chest and making him vomit blood. The old woman urged Shi Hao to leave, fearing that he would bring disaster upon himself, while the little girl also cried and begged him to escape. However, many surrounding creatures had already recognized Shi Hao as Huang, and the young man's servants soon arrived. The injured young man angrily ordered them to kill Shi Hao, but his servants immediately stopped him and warned him that the person before him was Huang. Once the young master realized Shi Hao's identity, his anger was mixed with fear. He knew that his strength and the strength of his subordinates were inferior to Shi Hao's, and that attacking him could also bring the punishment of the undying existences. Even so, relying on the backing of his king clan, he continued arguing that Shi Hao had no right to interfere with how he treated his own servants. The old woman and little girl were shocked when they realized that Huang was so powerful that even a young master of a king clan had to restrain himself before him. When the little girl tearfully asked Shi Hao to save them, Shi Hao immediately agreed without asking for details, because he could already guess how miserable the lives of 9 Heavens' descendants were. The young man's old servants eventually stopped their young master from continuing the conflict and took him away. As he was already feeling considerable fear after hearing the rumors about Huang and knowing that those who provoked Shi Hao might truly be killed, Shi Hao then began ascending Dao Comprehension Mountain, with the grandmother and granddaughter following him. Although he had temporarily saved them, Shi Hao understood that this did not truly free them from their misfortune. Dao Comprehension Mountain was enormous, so vast that a person walking upon it felt like a speck of dust, as if more than 100 great mountains had been joined together. Most cultivators climbed the stone stairs step by step instead of flying, since this was necessary for comprehending the Tao, and flying was forbidden out of respect for the sacred land. Even before reaching the summit, Shi Hao could sense an ocean-like abundance of life essence coming from the mountain peak, clearly related to the long-life medicine known as the Tao Comprehension Tea Tree. Auspicious light spread across the mountain, and the entire place was filled with immortal energy, making it an ideal sacred mountain for cultivation. Pavilions and resting areas were scattered along the path, accompanied by waterfalls, flowing springs, and rising immortal mist, giving the mountain an elegant and beautiful appearance. However, while climbing, Shi Hao suddenly saw a group of young people drinking and laughing in a distant pavilion. What he saw on their table immediately made his scalp go numb. A man was opening his mouth and swallowing a human child alive, with fresh blood splashing from his mouth as he continued chewing. A large jade plate beside him contained several other human children, all spirited children with unusual bloodline power. The old woman and little girl trembled in terror at the sight, and Shi Hao instantly understood why the grandmother and granddaughter had been treated so cruelly earlier. The King Clan young master whom Shi Hao had previously beaten then explained that the emperor's son-in-law was at a critical stage of transformation, so he had searched for human children with special bloodlines for him. One of the children had escaped, and Shi Hao's intervention had ruined their plans. The young master then looked at Shi Hao with cold provocation. The man who had been eating the child also turned his gaze toward Shi Hao, blood still dripping from the corners of his mouth, and coldly accused him of interfering with his food, arrogantly asking whether Huang thought too highly of himself. Seeing children being treated as food caused Shi Hao's anger to surge violently. He was not afraid, but was filled with murderous fury, and immediately rushed toward the pavilion, intending to slaughter those responsible. The people following him were horrified by the terrifying aura he released. The King Clan young master immediately stood up and angrily demanded to know what Shi Hao was trying to do. Shi Hao answered with action rather than words. Using earth to inches, he crossed the distance in a single step and unleashed a powerful fist at those standing in his way. The King Clan young master resisted with all his strength, but the difference in power was overwhelming. His body exploded with a violent sound, leaving only his head alive. It rolled to the side, filled with fear and alarm, while he remained alive and suffered a terrifying torment that made death seem preferable. The The people in the pavilion were shocked when Shi Hao, known as Huang, suddenly appeared and directly confronted them after witnessing them cruelly eating several 3 or 4-year-old children. The children had been sealed inside a jade disc, unable to speak or move, and were terrified. Shi Hao was enraged by the contrast between the elegant, civilized appearance of the creatures and their savage act of consuming innocent human children. After sensing the children, he discovered that they possessed unusual bones and extraordinary bloodlines, meaning they would likely grow into exceptionally talented cultivators with innate precious techniques. The so-called emperor's son-in-law, however, coldly claimed that the children were his food and ordered Shi Hao to leave. The gray-clothed elder accompanying Shi Hao warned him that this man was connected to the terrifying Scarlet King bloodline and was engaged to Cai Minghong's younger sister, making him an extremely dangerous person to provoke. The people in the pavilion also tried to intimidate Shi Hao, believing that he was afraid because he remained silent. Shi Hao instead declared that since he was human and had witnessed such savage behavior, he had to intervene. When the emperor's son-in-law insisted that humans were merely food, Shi Hao responded that although they viewed humans as prey, he viewed them as prey as well, and since they showed no remorse, they should simply die. The emperor's son-in-law then attacked with a powerful golden blade, hoping to hold Shi Hao back until reinforcements arrived, but Shi Hao stopped the weapon with 2 fingers and shattered it. Although his opponent unleashed numerous powerful secret techniques, Shi Hao broke through them effortlessly, reached him, and shattered one of his arms. After several more exchanges, Shi Hao destroyed his body, leaving only his head. Shi Hao then crushed the head of the King clan young master who had tried to offer the little girl as food, destroying both his body and primordial spirit. He also killed another surviving creature. The so-called emperor's son-in-law desperately tried to use his future relationship with Cai Minghong's sister to save himself. But Shi Hao pointed out that he was not even her actual Dao companion yet and declared that he would kill him regardless. With a single stomp, Shi Hao crushed his head and killed him. Everyone nearby was stunned that Shi Hao had decisively slaughtered the future son-in-law of a princess from the Scarlet King bloodline. News of the incident spread rapidly throughout the mountain, and the gray-clothed elder warned Shi Hao that he had provoked a tremendous disaster. Shi Hao ignored the danger and continued ascending the mountain, while the old woman and the little girl followed him with complicated but relieved expressions. As Shi Hao approached the summit, he saw the hazy divine radiance of an immortal medicine growing there. Other cultivators angrily shouted that he had attacked a member of an emperor clan and warned that the emperor clan would not let him go. Shi Hao simply replied that if they wanted to fight, he would fight.